What is up, Bitcoin entrepreneurs? We are live on the Skool platform once again, but the only problem right now is we are videoless on the actual Skool platform, and that's just due to something wrong with my pesky little camera. So that's fine. We're still going to release it on YouTube and everything, and we still have a video for YouTube, as you can obviously see. But today's topic that we're going to rant on today is living on the Bitcoin standard, and what the implications are and what that actually means, and the whole 9 yards for that. So first, I just want to say again, thank you for all of the people watching. And if you want to ask questions in the live chat, we are live right now. But you know come join the Skool group so you can participate in these lives every Saturday, and it'll be fun. You can come in the live chats and you can ask questions and I'll answer them live. And then I always post the video afterwards to YouTube. So without any further ado, we're going to get into the Bitcoin standard. So that is a book, by the way, by Saifedean Ammous, and he is one of like the forefront leaders in the Bitcoin network. Kind of, his book is I recommend the Bitcoin Standard book to everybody. Bitcoiner or not, I would recommend it, because it really, what it teaches you is just how money works. So that's super interesting. But apart from the book, what I wanted to teach and I wanted to tell you about today is like what it means to live on a Bitcoin standard, right? Because if you are interested in Bitcoin, then you would know that living on a Bitcoin standard is kind of like it's like a trope that people say, because a lot of people believe that Bitcoin will be the medium of exchange. And obviously, to become the best money, you kind of have to be a medium of exchange. But in my opinion, this wouldn't be a reality really for, a little bit longer, in terms of like my lifetime, to become a full medium of exchange. But I just wanted to explain that if you wanted to be on the Bitcoin standard, you totally could do this. This is completely a possibility nowadays. And I just wanted to explain, how that works really. So I will be shouting out Jack Mallers' company, Strike, because it's an app, and it's really just one of the leading financial institutions for Bitcoin. And Jack recently released, I don't know if it was so recently, but somewhat recently released his new company, which is called 21. And they're teamed up with the founder of Tether, I believe, or the CEO of Tether. So that's very interesting stuff. And Strike is, a big proponent in this space, and how you could actually put yourself on a Bitcoin standard. And what I mean by a Bitcoin standard is have essentially like having all of your liquid assets in Bitcoin. So then you can use apps like Strike to make all this happen and actually make your life, feasible in terms of using money. So to start this, let me just bring up the purpose of money. So the purpose of money essentially is like you want to store your value over time, right? You want to be able to provide for your future self. So you make money, and then you have to, give money to other people in order to have the things you either want or need. So you have a house, you need to pay rent or pay your mortgage, right? Like you have a car, essentially the same thing. You got to pay your loan. And obviously the banks are making more, like the banks are making a ton of profit on your loans. It's not just that they're breaking even. No, like you're getting an interest rate, and you're going to pay more than what the actual worth of the loan was. So living on a Bitcoin standard would essentially eliminate deflationary asset. So living 100% on Bitcoin. And let me tell you how you can do this using Strike. So Strike, what you can do is your paycheck, whatever paycheck you're getting, you can route this to Strike Financial Services. And what they will do is you can get your paycheck deposited in Bitcoin. So then once you get your paycheck deposited in Bitcoin, they also have, they have a bill pay scenario. So before we get into that, people always wonder if you're going to put all of your liquid wealth into, Bitcoin, why would this be helpful, right? So it's kind of just like everything else in the world, or every other family in the world. The whole point of money is to store your value into time, so you can provide for your own future. So if you were to, keep all of your money in cash, due to inflation, each year you're losing the purchasing power and the value of your dollar. So obviously that's like a huge problem, because eventually you won't be able to afford certain things, like basic groceries potentially, with what you make now, because your raises from your job aren't beating the percentage rates of deflation. So that's obviously like super problem. So this is one of the main things about the Bitcoin standard that could be a super important ideology for people to, think about and actually adopt over time. Because like if you think about it, if we're talking about Bitcoin as money, you would have to use the money, right? Because think about like the dollar system that we all use today. What do all the banks and all the, treasury companies and investment companies and businesses use? They use the money to create more money, right? So then if Bitcoin is going to be a money, which it's a better money in my opinion and many others' opinion, if you're going to use it as money, you have to actually use it. So what that means is individuals like me or like you to actually spend the Bitcoin sometimes and actually use it as money, because it's a better money. The whole point of the money is to store your value over time so you can get things with it, right? And now that's completely possible. So the more money you use, and the more money the banks use and the investment companies use, will increase the value of the money, as long as you don't print more money. So that's Bitcoin. So clearly, just from that, Bitcoin is a way more logical, idea for banks and even just Bitcoiners to use as money, because you're not getting debased. Your value, your time and energy that you're saving over time, it is going to increase. So that will help you long term, and it'll help your kids long term and your wife long term and your future grandchildren or generations, as opposed to the opposite, where the money and the time and the energy that I put out there will diminish if it's stored in dollars. So my son or my grandchildren that don't exist yet, obviously, will not benefit from the time and energy that I put into the ecosystem. And that ecosystem is the banking systems and the work cycle that we go through every day. Because I still have a job, I still have to work. So Bitcoin would be a way better technology and a way better money. Just these are things that make sense. All right, so with all that said, that was a bit of a rant, but that's the whole point of this. If we're going to actually get on a Bitcoin standard, how can we do this? And what does this even mean? So what you can do, like I said, is have your Bitcoin, or have your paycheck, be sent straight to Strike. right? So you can do this at your job. You can actually like go to HR or accounting or whoever deals with that, and then you can have your paycheck routed to a different financial institution, which would be Strike, right? And then you can actually have the dollars that go into Strike be converted to Bitcoin. So then you would have all of your paycheck would come into Bitcoin on Strike. So then if you need to pay for things throughout the day, right? You want to get your coffee, you want to get your you're getting a car wash, you're getting food, like you're buying groceries, whatever you're doing, you can use a credit card for that, right? And then don't get me wrong, credit cards are a horrible debt. Like, and this leads into what I'm about to talk about in terms of like discipline, because credit cards are horrible debt. They have like 22, 28%, like percentages like that on interest, and that's horrible. You're just going to get destroyed. You're going to pay them way more for what you spent, and that's, they have to make some money somehow, but they're making money in a completely unfair way. So this would have to push you into controlling your spending, right? You would have to be more disciplined. So you can use your credit cards for things like this, right? But then how do you pay off the credit card balance if you don't have any dollars? Well, then that's where the Strike bill pay would come into play. And then so you can just use Strike, and I'm sure many people watching this have heard of bill pay or have used bill pay, because all it is essentially is just like creating, a scenario where the financial institution where you keep all your money is just going to pay the bill for you, and you just tell them what the bill is and use your funds, obviously. But so at this point, then you would be selling some of the Satoshis to pay for your bills. But the whole point is you're holding all of your liquid net worth in a appreciating asset because it's a capped supply. There's no debasement happening here in Bitcoin. So then over time, your wealth is going to be stored in what you put into it. So you can still have a savings mechanism, which is obviously recommended. You would want to have a system where you would save and actually prolong your wealth into the future and your time and energy. In terms of like maybe, putting that Bitcoin into cold storage, because I love Strike and it's awesome, but you still wouldn't want to have your, Bitcoin just in Strike if your plan is long term to hold it and save it for the future. Like, still, cold storage is the safest bet. I have videos on this. But the whole point is you'd be able to pay your bills using the Bitcoin that you have from your paychecks. So then you would allocate more Satoshis from your paycheck that you would want to put into cold storage as savings because you want to save the asset. But at the same time, the money that you're still using is just, you're choosing to use Bitcoin as the money. You're still getting paid from your job the same amount, but this might, make you want to actually save more Satoshis. Whereas if it was in the dollar, you might have just spent all the Satoshis. Because you know that Bitcoin's more valuable and it's going to go up over time. So this would, instill discipline in you to be able to do what you want to do with this, with your money and your time and your energy. Because like essentially, like a savings account is the same thing as a checking account pretty much, because a savings account can tell you you're going to get 3.3 interest, because that's what I get on an Amex savings account, right? 3.3% interest. Guess what? Inflation every year is higher than that. So the money that I keep in that savings account is going to lose value over the year. And by value, I mean like purchasing power. I don't mean the number is going to go down, because the number will actually go up because I'm getting a 3.3% interest. Like, I'm not going to get less in my savings account if I don't take any out of it. I'm going to get more because there's an interest rate. But the purchasing power that money holds is going to diminish as they print more of the shitty fiat currency, because it's not backed on anything. So when the supply increases, then everything's going to get more expensive, and I'm going to be able to buy less things with the same amount of money I had. And the rate that the money I had is going up isn't even, it's like half of the projected inflation rate or more than that. So then eventually the money you had is just losing value and purchasing power. So it's like, what are you even doing with that money? It's completely pointless, right? And then so to to bring up another topic with Strike right now that they let you do, and this is a more advanced scenario, and obviously like I haven't done this, but it's an idea, and this is something I've looked into a little bit with you can take a loan out from Strike. And this is interesting because Strike is for the Bitcoiner, right? As far as I have heard and watched from things with Jack Mallers and all them, um, Strike is for the Bitcoiner. So they, at this point, I believe they have like a 12% interest rate or something similar. I think it's 12%. They are trying to get their interest rates on their loans down to single digits, but I'm not sure if when that'll happen. Obviously, I have nothing to do with Strike, so I'm just waiting, just like you are. But a 12% interest rate, there's a year term, so it'd be 12 months. So then you're able to take 50% in cash on what your collateral you put in. So the example is, if you put $200,000 of Bitcoin onto Strike and you took out a loan, you can take a cash or a USDT loan, I'm pretty sure, which, USDT is essentially cash. It's pegged to the dollar and it's one of the most successful companies ever. I'm pretty sure it has the most income ever, Tether, or most revenue ever. They're beating BlackRock. So that's absolutely wild. So it's like, to assume that this stablecoin Tether is not equivalent to the US dollar is crazy. But you can get 50% of what your collateral is. So if you put $200,000 of Bitcoin onto Strike, you can get $100,000 in cash back. Now, you have an option to pay monthly, or you have an option to pay yearly. And so if you were going to pay that APIs, the interest rate, APY, so it would be 12%. So if 12% on the 100 grand that you got from your loan, that would be what, you'd be able to keep $88,000, right? And then you would, I'm not 100% sure of the other types of fees that are associated with that, but I know that the fees are minimal and there's no, there's no like initial costs for the loan. It's just the APY, and then it might be some other small fee. But you get, 80, 88, 85, 83, $80,000 from your loan, whatever the number is, based off your collateral Bitcoin. And the collateral of the Bitcoin that you hold is just held in like a reserve account on Strike. They don't rehypothecate it and use it for other things. They just hold up your Bitcoin because your Bitcoin is an appreciating asset. So obviously they would want to hold more on their balance sheet. So you get your 80 grand. You're free to do whatever you want with your 80 grand. Now, you have the option to pay monthly, or you have the option to pay the interest rate at the end of the year, plus another fee potentially. But the reason why like the fee doesn't really matter that much is because you're still completely breaking what a normal loan system would do to you. And you get to still keep your Bitcoin in a reserved account trusted by Strike. So obviously you would have to trust Strike, but they don't mess with your collateral. It's just holding an appreciating asset. And then also you're able to, at the end of the loan, get back out of that and get your Bitcoin back, or you can, re-roll the loan. And by then, if it was a year or more, you would have more equity in your collateral, and then thus you could get a bigger loan. So in theory, you'd be able to have like a loan through Strike because your Bitcoin collateral essentially for the rest of your life, if you could figure it out that way. But obviously these are things you would still have to be able to pay Strike, because then they would have to like liquidate you and then you lose your Bitcoin. But you wouldn't want to do that. So I'm not saying that you would have to like put 100% of your Bitcoin stack into a loan to get cash out of it to buy a house or something. But this is a way that you can actually use your money, because you could even take a loan out from Strike and just buy more Bitcoin, because then you'll be able to pay back the interest rate over time, assuming we're going to be going above 12% a year, which historically is completely fair. And even if you don't want to take just the year, you could then, if there was a dip at the end of the term, you would just have to put back more collateral to Strike in order to like make up for the massive dip in Bitcoin. But that's expected. It's volatile. So again, just like living on the Bitcoin standard, these being on the Bitcoin standard would make you, be more disciplined. It would make you, handle your money better. It would make you think about, longevity better. It would make you lower your time preference more. And also, these are all, things that are within the Bitcoin Standard book by Saifedean Ammous. And I will put that in the description too, because I feel like I'm not getting anything out of it, but it's one of the greatest Bitcoin books, in my opinion. I think everybody should read it if you want to. And also in the description will be my book too, but obviously my book is way less, popularized and reviewed and everything rated than the Bitcoin Standard, but it's all going to be there if you're interested. So, yeah, I feel like we ranted for a while there, and that was pretty good. But that's pretty much all I wanted to say within this Bitcoin Standard podcast, because people can now actually, be on a Bitcoin Standard. It's just pretty much you would have to be a disciplined person, because the thing is, if you have, you're getting your paycheck in Satoshis on Strike, let's just say, and you overspend on your credit card, it's like, well, that's on you, because now you're going to have a bad debt that's you're not going to be able to pay off. And then you're going to have to, you're going to accrue the interest, and then the interest is going to break you because you don't have enough to spend. That's just like everything else. You don't have enough to pay it off, it meant. So this is just, you have to be disciplined. Same thing with the loans. Obviously, this is not financial advice. I am not a financial advisor or anything. I am just a Bitcoiner. So, contact someone if you want more information on this stuff. But the whole idea here is Bitcoin would be a net positive to society if we started actually using Bitcoin as money, because in both, medium of exchange and both savings, just better for us. It creates better habits for us, and it'll help the world. Fix the money, fix the world. That's something I always like to say. And then that's just a Bitcoin mantra, and also, engineering a better world with Bitcoin. That's just really the whole message I have here with this channel. So if you like what is going on in this channel, if you like these rants, and if you want to keep listening to me rant about things, then hit the subscribe button, hit the like button for the algorithm, and I appreciate all of you. Peace.